She gave her son's only shoes to a barefoot stranger in the rain. No cameras, no crowd, just quiet kindness. But that girl was hiding a secret worth billions. And when the truth came out, it almost cost Sarah everything. What happens next will leave you speechless. The rain hadn't let up all morning. It fell in steady sheets, washing the color from the sidewalks and leaving behind puddles that reflected the gray, tired sky. Sarah Mills stood behind the diner counter, pouring another cup of lukewarm coffee for a man too busy scrolling on his phone to say thank you. She didn't mind. She was used to being invisible. Then she saw her, just outside the fogged-up glass, barefoot, soaked and standing still. A girl, maybe 15, 16, hugging herself in a too-thin hoodie, hair matted against her cheeks. No umbrella, no coat, no shoes, just trembling feet on cold pavement. Sarah blinked. Was she real? She stepped outside without thinking, apron still on, steam from the kitchen clinging to her skin. Rain smacked her arms. The chill bit through her sleeves. Hey, honey, you okay? Sarah's voice was soft but carried warmth. The girl looked up, startled, her eyes wild, almost like a deer cornered in headlights. She didn't speak, just shook her head once, then looked down at her feet. Sarah followed her gaze. The girl's soles were red and raw. Without a word, Sarah slipped off her son's old sneakers, stuffed in a bag under the register for emergencies, and knelt down. The girl flinched. It's all right, Sarah whispered, gently holding out the shoes. They're not new, but they're dry and warm. The girl hesitated, then took them, her fingers trembling. She didn't say thank you, didn't look back, just walked into the rain, shoes in hand, disappearing down the street like a ghost. Inside, Sarah stood in the doorway, soaked and silent. She didn't know the girl's name, didn't know where she came from, didn't know that the girl she'd just helped was a billionaire's daughter running from a life of secrets. But what Sarah did know deep in her gut was that something about this didn't feel finished. The diner smelled like burnt toast and old grease, familiar and oddly comforting. Sarah wiped down a booth, glancing out the window every few seconds, half expecting to see that barefoot girl again. But the sidewalk was empty now, except for puddles rippling under passing cars. Who was that kid? Asked Marla, the waitress with a sharp tongue and 3 ex-husbands. She popped her gum and leaned on the counter. Sarah shrugged, not looking up. Just someone who needed shoes. Marla scoffed. Probably a runaway. You better be careful, Sarah. Folks around here love to talk. Sarah didn't respond. She just kept wiping the table, a little harder than necessary. It wasn't the first time someone warned her about helping the wrong people. But Sarah had lived that life, the one where no one helps. She remembered too well what it felt like to be broken, and barefoot in ways no one could see. Later that evening, Sarah walked into her tiny apartment, 2 rooms stacked on top of each other like they were barely holding hands. Her son, Eli, 8 years old and full of questions, was waiting by the door with socks mismatched and eyes wide. Hey, Mom, you look wet. I was wet, she said with a tired smile, pulling him into a hug. Guess what happened today? You got fired, he joked. Not yet, she chuckled. I gave your old shoes to someone who needed them more than we do. Eli looked confused, but they had holes in them. Still better than nothing, she said. Then her voice softened. You never know what someone's walking through, baby. Eli nodded slowly, thinking that over like kids do when they don't quite get it, but trust you anyway. The next morning, Sarah returned to the diner, the air still thick with drizzle. Her boss, Hank, stood by the coffee machine with a frown that said trouble before breakfast. You giving out charity now? He asked, not looking at her. Sarah froze. Excuse me. Words going round you were handing out shoes to strangers. That kind of stuff makes people nervous. Makes us look like a shelter. Sarah's throat tightened. She was just a kid. She needed help. Hank sighed. Look, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying don't make it a habit. You got a job here, 'cause I trust you not to make waves. Let's keep it that way. Sarah nodded, but inside something tugged. Not at Hank. Not at the town. At herself. She had promised she'd never stand out again. Never risk the little stability she had. But yesterday something in her had shifted. And what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that her one small act of kindness had just set something in motion. Something that would shake her quiet world to its core. 2 days passed. No sign of the girl. No name. No thank you. Not even a shadow outside the diner window. Just rain, then silence, then whispers. Sarah started noticing the stares first. Subtle at first, then obvious. A group of ladies at booth 6 paused their conversation when she walked by. One leaned in and muttered, "You'd think she'd know better with a kid and all." At the grocery store, the cashier scanned her milk and bread with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're the one who gave away shoes, right?" To that girl from nowhere. Sarah forced a nod. She didn't even say, "Thanks, huh?" The woman smirked. Some folks don't know when they're being taken for a ride. Back at the diner, the mood had changed. Hank was short with her. He never said it outright, but the tone was clear. She'd invited trouble. "This ain't a charity, Sarah," he finally snapped during the lunch rush. "If you want to hand out shoes, do it on your own time. Not wearing my apron." The words hit harder than she expected. Sarah bit her lip and went back to refilling coffee like nothing had happened. But something had. The worst part? She didn't even know why she felt so heavy. Why one act of kindness had turned her into a conversation piece in a town that claimed to care about good values. That night, while folding laundry with holes and fading colors, Eli sat beside her on the floor. "Mom," he asked quietly, "did you do something bad?" The question made her hands freeze. "Why would you ask that? Some kids at school said you got in trouble. They said you helped a runaway, and now the police are gonna come." Sarah laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "No, sweetheart. I didn't do anything wrong. I just helped someone. That's all." Eli tilted his head. "Then why do people act like you did?" And there it was, the question she couldn't answer. Not for him. Not even for herself. Later that night, long after Eli fell asleep, Sarah sat alone at the tiny kitchen table. Rain pattered against the windows again. She stared at a photo of her younger self, before the bills, before the fear, before the shame. Back when she still believed that doing the right thing always made life better. Now, it just made her a target. Still, something inside her whispered, "Don't regret it. Not this time." And though she didn't know it yet, her life was already being watched from places far beyond the diner. By someone with power and a plan. The rain finally stopped. For the first time in a week, the sky turned a soft silver blue, and the puddles began to dry. But the girl never came back. Sarah watched the sidewalk every morning from behind the diner counter, pretending not to hope. Pretending she wasn't waiting. By the end of the week, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She walked to the local shelter on Maple and asked if anyone had seen a girl about 16. No shoes, dark hair, thin. The lady at the desk shook her head slowly. "We had a few new girls in last night, but none like that." She tried the bus station next. The staff shrugged. "We don't keep track unless they cause trouble." No name, no trace. That night, Sarah sat on the steps outside her apartment, arms wrapped around her knees, staring up at the stars barely visible through the streetlights. What if she was hurt? What if she was hungry? What if no one ever helped her again? Her stomach twisted with something between guilt and fear. She had helped, but had it been enough? Was that all she could offer someone like that? And then, just when she was about to stand up and go back inside, she found it. A small, folded piece of notebook paper, wedged in the screen door like it had been slipped through in a hurry. Her name was scrawled across the front in shaky handwriting. "Sarah." She opened it. "Thank you. You were the first person who saw me. I'm okay now. Don't worry." There was no signature. No return address. Nothing else. But Sarah clutched the note like it was a treasure. Something real. Proof that she hadn't imagined it all. That her kindness hadn't been swallowed up by the world and forgotten. For the first time in days, she smiled. Maybe the girl had found safety. Maybe it wasn't a mistake to care. But across town, in a gated estate that sat high on the hills above the very diner Sarah worked in, a different scene unfolded. A man in a dark suit slammed a photo onto a polished table. It was grainy from a diner security camera. The image showed a soaked girl in a hoodie, accepting a pair of shoes from a woman in a sunflower-trimmed apron. She was here, the man growled. Find the woman. Quietly. Because that girl wasn't just any runaway. She was Lily Cartwright, daughter of one of the richest men in the country. And the woman who helped her had just stepped into a secret she didn't even know existed. The note stayed on Sarah's fridge for 3 days, pinned between a grocery list and a faded photo of Eli as a toddler. Every time she looked at it, something inside her softened. But the whispers didn't stop. Mrs. Avery, a diner regular who tipped in quarters, leaned in one morning and muttered, "You know they're saying that girl was part of a gang. That you got mixed up in something." Sarah blinked, holding a pot of coffee in her hands. "Gang," she echoed, almost amused. Mrs. Avery shrugged. "Wouldn't surprise me. You give 'em shoes, they take your life." She sipped her decaf like she just solved a mystery. By lunchtime, Sarah felt it pressing in. Everyone's opinions, everyone's suspicions, but no one had asked how she felt. That night, Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, folding Eli's clothes while he colored at the table. Crayons were everywhere, and his latest drawing showed a dragon with a sword made of lightning. "Mom," he said suddenly, "did you ever run away when you were little?" The question struck her in the chest. She looked up, caught off guard. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "Just wondering. I think that girl did. Maybe her mom yelled at her or something." Sarah put down the shirt she was folding. Then, slowly, she sat beside him. "I didn't run away," she said, voice quiet. "But I ran from things. From people who hurt me. From a home that stopped feeling safe." Eli looked at her with those big eyes that always made her feel both strong and small. "I used to have a nice house. Big kitchen, shiny floors. But I lost it. I made some bad choices. Trusted the wrong people." He frowned. "Is that why we live here now?" She nodded. "Yeah, baby. That's why." There was silence between them for a while, just the scratching of his crayon against paper. Then Eli leaned against her. "I think helping that girl was a good choice." Sarah closed her eyes. Tears stung. "I think so too." Outside, the street light flickered. Somewhere in the quiet of night, a car rolled to a stop 2 blocks away. Tinted windows, engine running. A voice inside spoke into a phone. "She lives on the 2nd floor. Her name's Sarah Mills. Single mother. Works at the diner. Yeah, she gave Lily Cartwright her shoes." Because the truth was, Sarah's act of kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. Not by the world, and not by the people who had the power to change her life forever, or destroy it. Sunday morning was unusually quiet. The kind of quiet that feels too quiet, like something's coming. Sarah stood on her tiny porch with a cup of instant coffee, watching Eli draw chalk dragons on the cracked sidewalk. She was halfway through a sip when a black luxury car rolled to a smooth stop in front of her building. It didn't belong. Not here. Not in this neighborhood. The driver stepped out first, tall, gray suit, earpiece. He walked to the back door and opened it, and out stepped the girl. Same sharp eyes, same long, dark hair. But this time, her clothes were crisp, her posture straight. Her face no longer looked scared. It looked calm, like someone who had found her name again. "Lily," Sarah whispered. The girl gave a small nod and walked slowly toward her. Eli stood up, chalk in hand, confused. "I told them where to find you," Lily said quietly. "I hope that's okay." Sarah blinked. "Why?" "Because you saw me when no one else did." Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept speaking. "When I ran away, people looked through me. Like I didn't matter without the money. You gave me shoes like it was the most normal thing in the world. You treated me like I had worth." Sarah swallowed hard. "You do have worth." Lily smiled. "My dad wants to talk to you." She motioned to the car. Inside the mansion on the hill, everything smelled like leather and cold marble. James Cartwright stood by a wall of windows, phone in one hand, barely turning as Sarah entered. "You helped my daughter," he said simply, without knowing who she was, without asking for anything. Sarah nodded slowly. She needed help. That's all I saw. There was a long pause. Then he turned to face her. "I've built empires, Miss Mills, but I can't buy the kind of heart you showed my daughter. That's why I want you to work with us. I run a foundation, real help for real people. We need someone who understands what it's like to need and to give. Sarah's breath caught. You want to hire me? He smiled just slightly. No, I want to offer you a future. For you and your son. Behind him, Lily watched silently. She wasn't the barefoot girl anymore. But in her eyes, there was still that flicker of fragility. The kind only kindness can heal. Sarah didn't say yes right away. She stood there stunned, heart pounding. Because sometimes the most unbelievable moments come quietly. Like a stranger in the rain. Like a pair of shoes. Like a billionaire's daughter saying thank you. 1 month later, the diner stool Sarah always stood behind sat empty. The bell still rang when the door opened, and Marla still gossiped by the coffee pot. But now they spoke of her with a new kind of tone. Not pity, not judgment, something closer to awe. She's working for them now, someone whispered. Cartwright Foundation. Full salary. Benefits. Paid leave. No kidding. And her kid's going to that private school in the hills. On a scholarship. Just for giving a girl some shoes. No, Marla said, shaking her head, voice soft for once. For being decent when no one else was. At the Cartwright Community Center, Sarah now greeted families who looked like she used to. Tired eyes. Stretched wallets. Kids with big dreams and torn sneakers. She didn't just hand out help, she understood it. She saw them. One afternoon, as she finished helping a mother with housing papers, she felt a familiar tug on her sleeve. It was Lily, wearing simple jeans, a hoodie, and, this time, her own shoes. Want to grab coffee? Lily asked. Sarah smiled. You buying? Lily grinned. Please, you already gave me everything. Later that night, Sarah tucked Eli into bed in their new 2-bedroom apartment. No leaking faucet. No flickering lights. Just peace. Mom, he mumbled sleepily. You're like a superhero now. She laughed softly, brushing his hair back. Nah, baby. I just gave someone a pair of shoes. But deep down, she knew it had been more than that. She had given a moment of dignity. A human moment. And in return, she had been given something she'd stopped believing in long ago. A second chance.